Week 2 fantasy movies with some fantastical element. Dave's back. He was like not here because he couldn't handle watching a unicorn movie last week. So
that was actually a movie I suggested for you guys, believe it or not.
Oh, really?
If you remember the episode before that. I love Legend. I have a Blu-ray.
Yeah. Which version do you watch?
I go back and forth. I go to the original for the music. Like I said, the perfect version would be the director's cut with the Tangerine Dream score. But it doesn't exist so far.
Jordan and I determined a couple things last week when we did watch Legend. The darkness calls for somebody's help at the end, and we're wondering, who did he call for help from? 2, Tom Cruise does martial arts through the whole movie, and that's why he wears a skirt, which is called like a tunic. It's a medieval shirt / dress / I don't know what you want to call it, and his armor is the same way. Yeah, and they take the time to give him magical weapons, and then they don't use them, and they lose them. It makes no sense, and then they never get them back. It's
the lava, him putting his hand in the lava for the unicorn horn. I was like, I feel like that would burn.
And we were also intrigued by the fact that there could be a Lady Darkness, and they should have just done that with the princess's character and just ended it that way. But the reason I pushed it on the list was I'm a little biased. I obviously like the movie a lot, even though I kind of made fun of it. But, you got to make fun of the things you love.
That's a great movie, though.
Funny human creatures.
I wasn't here for it, but I mean, yeah, to jump off what Jordan said.
Did you listen to the podcast?
I did,
actually. Did you tune in? Yeah.
Oh.
We didn't rib you that hard for missing out.
No, but I agree with Jordan. It's one of the best. It's one of the best visual movies ever. The world they build with that, I kind of want to visit that world. Except for Darkness's lair or whatever you want to call that.
Frick, I'd go there too. That thing looked so cool.
Well, if they make part 2, it might be a theme park. It'll be a T-shirt. It'll be an app. It'll be a theme park. It'll be like Hobbiton, how they built the town for freaking Lord of the Rings. You can go there as a tourist now.
I'd be into it.
Wonder who owns the rights to Legend. I'll have to figure that out. Anyway,
it's weird. There's different companies own it in different countries. So that's why they can never they weren't able to restore it in 4K for some weird logistical reasons. I read something about that recently, but I wasn't here for facts last week.
Well, the reason it got bumped to the top of the list was I just got super excited that they were going to do a part 2. And then I'm like, you know what? We're doing fantastic movies. We should just cover it. That's how fantastic it is.
That is probably, if I was here last week, that would have been a binge now for me, but I wasn't.
I don't even remember where we landed. I think I was a binge now, and Jordan was a binge later. Yeah. Okay. Let's jump into home video headlines. Ethan Hawke and Pedro Pascal are going to star in Pedro Almodóvar's Western film, Strange Way of Life.
Sold.
Yeah. Almodóvar, he's an awesome filmmaker. He's Spanish, I think?
Yeah, he's
from Spain.
You forget, actually I just watched his newest movie, Parallel Mothers, because Penelope Cruz was up for Best Actress, and honestly I thought she should have gotten it. He works really well with these actors that come over here and become movie stars, or just kind of used for their looks, but he gives her and Antonio Banderas real roles and real meaty roles to work with, whereas over here they're just action stars or pretty faces. But
I'd watch it. I like Pedro Pascal a lot, so yeah, I think it will be exciting.
And a Western, yeah, I'm in. I'm just wondering if it's going to be in English or Spanish. I don't think he's done an English movie yet.
Maybe it'll be both. It's always cool when they weave in and out of English and Spanish. Anyway, I think he's one of my favorite directors, and he's more of an artistic director. But somehow it's really interesting because he can make things look fantastic, but also somehow grounded in reality. Because all his movies generally take place in our world. Right. I would assume it's our world, and stuff that situations you could find yourself in, and then they get exaggerated, but also super dramatic. So,
his movies feel like suspense movies when they're really just high dramas. he has a way of, I don't know, turning up the tension, or like an event will happen and you're like, again, with the movie Parallel Mothers, no spoilers, but like something happens in the middle of the movie and I literally went, like it was just that big of a something crazy that just happened.
Dang. Speaking of crazy things that happened, Howard Stern left his microphone on during one of his broadcasts, and supposedly he like leaked the fact that he's involved in like a Doctor Doom project for the MCU. So then your imagination runs wild. Did he do it on purpose? Was he making a joke? Is he really working on a Doctor Doom project? And if so, is it the fabled Fantastic Four movie that they're supposed to develop? Or is it actually a Doctor Doom TV show or movie? Either way, I'm guessing he's not playing Doctor Doom because Doctor Doom isn't like Howard Stern at all. Unless they were making like a joke out of it, which is really interesting because John Krasinski is kind of a joke as Reed Richards from the Fantastic Four during his cameo in Doctor Strange 2. You know, they kind of make a joke out of his character. And then I heard, Dave, who's the actor from Forgetting Sarah Marshall, like the main character who's heartbroken and broken up?
Yes.
Look at Jordan snapping that answer up. She's on it. Like, yeah, Jason Segel. So there's a rumor that another like Marvel leak, and I think like, okay, I mean, the best marketing in the world could be leak all your stuff, right? Like leak it out to the public and see how they react to it, so you have time to either recast that actor or change the script or leave it alone and anticipate how many tickets you're going to sell or how many downloads you'll get of the movie when it hits the streamers. Like, I think they're leaking stuff as like part of the marketing on purpose. That's what I would do. I mean, if I was in PR
just ask him gay.
What?
It said, just ask him gay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. How do you start Kardashian celebrity, 4 TV shows, a fashion line, a makeup line? You just got to drop the sex tape. Dave, when are you releasing yours?
Mine?
When does that drop? Does it drop at Christmas time?
February 29th.
That's a very specific day. Like, Dave's got this all planned. Wow.
Oh, wait a minute.
Is it?
Oh, wait a minute. There are February 29th. I meant to say February 30th. So the next leap year, I guess I'm on the hook for sex.
Wow. Here we go. At least 2 tickets sold. The listeners are listening. Okay. Listen. Okay. Never mind.
Okay.
Quiet, you. Actually, asking a podcaster to be quiet is kind of like an oxymoron or something, right? Yeah. It's counterproductive, counterintuitive. Just be quiet. Just let the microphone go for 45 minutes. Where are we? Oh, yeah. Talking about the best day to leak your sex tape or a Doctor Doom reveal. Jason Segel is rumored to be in She-Hulk, which is the show that they're going to have on Disney Plus anytime soon. But he's playing the Thing, which is another Fantastic Four character. So I'm like, wait a minute. If they're casting all comedians or funny people or with Howard Stern, a shock jock, like I'm like, wait a minute. Like, is it possible that they want the next Fantastic Four to be cheesy on purpose because all the iterations of Fantastic Four have sucked because they've taken it too seriously? Like, and in the modern day and times it would be interesting if like they intentionally engineered it to be a comedy, and so therefore their tone was comedic, right? Like if they went zany with because Fantastic Four goes back to the 60s, and like most of their stories in the comic book that are their best stories are between like 60 something and like the early 80s. The culture clash with like what do you call? There's like I'm not a scientist, but there's or like anthropologist, but there's like a term, right? Where like, things change, right? So what's acceptable socially at one time or another is not, right? Like, right. All their stories are kind of like dated based on the rules of society.
Well, Fantastic Four has always been a bit of the goofier comic in the series, right? I mean, I know there's like heavy stuff going on within it, but it always had like a lighter touch or
not really. Not really. The only ones that kind of had like a personality like that, they hung out with Spider-Man, was the Human Torch, the fire guy, and the Thing, who's the rock guy. They had like a banter, but the other ones, they're just like, what's the doctor that specializes in butts? Is it proctology? Yeah.
Proctologist.
Yeah. Fantastic Four as a whole seems like a proctologist going over an exam with you. Like, that's my interpretation of their whole comic book run. Like, they're boring. They're very boring.
Well, I'll tell you what, here's my pitch. Like, if anybody at Disney is listening, or Marvel, first of all, scrap a movie. I mean, maybe a movie in the future. You got Disney Plus, create it like a 90s, 2000s era style sitcom. Make it like Friends, but with the Fantastic Four. I want to see all those guys live in an apartment and deal with that shit. You know what I mean? Like,
that sounds hilarious.
Like, you could even see Fantastic Four in the Friends font. Like, I don't know.
Wow. They don't got the courage to do something like that. They don't take chances
did
like
with
that.
WandaVision, and then they mucked it up with a Marvel story. I know I'm in the minority there, but I just wish that was just a straight up.
Yeah, because WandaVision was gonna always tell a straightforward MCU story. They were just doing a parody of television shows, like the device to deliver it to you, David. That's all.
All right, I just wanted, I liked the peanut butter and not so much the jelly, or vice versa. I just wanted a sitcom.
We're talking about his sex tape again now. He's trying to build an audience. Speaking of devices delivering things, the Bob's Burger movie is headed for both Hulu and HBO Max in the at least in the US on July 12th. So I asked these guys earlier if they had seen it. Dave, you said you finally caught it, or
it took me 3 times to see it. I live in a little town where a 2-screen theater. The first weekend I went, the projector was down and they didn't know how to fix it, so they gave us tickets to come back. Week later, I go and I went at their posted time on their Facebook page and their marquee, and they started it 15 minutes before they actually posted it was supposed to start. So I didn't want to see a late movie, and then I finally got to see it. There's my dramatic Bob's Burgers story.
riveting.
Yeah, I know. You win a Pulitzer for telling him 3 times to see a movie. No, it's fun. My wife didn't get to see it after all, so when it comes to HBO Max, I'll finally get to show it to my wife, who missed out on it.
I'm so excited. I wanted to go see it in the theaters, but I'm not allowed to go to the movies by myself anymore because I fall asleep like every single time. And so I just didn't make it. But yeah. Riveting, right, John?
No, I mean, I was about to say, like, folks, you may not know this, but Jordan is like one of the biggest Bob's Burger fans that I think I've ever encountered. Like, she knows the characters' outfits. She wears the characters' outfits. She knows more about them than probably the creators of the show at this point.
Yeah, it's like pretty high up there for me. Probably like Futurama is my religion, and then Bob's Burgers is like right underneath it.
Oh,
so,
nice.
Yeah.
Those are not bad religions.
No, I would.
Do you ever dress up like the burger for Halloween, or like Gene in the burger?
I've been the beef squatch. I've been Louise.
I was gonna ask.
This is hardcore. This is like real life shit right here. This is like, instead of being a brony who's like in love with My Little Pony, she's like is there a name for Bob's Burger fans, Jordan?
Oh no, but you do bring up a super fun point that there's an episode that is about bronies, and they call them equesticles.
Yes.
Yeah, because there's a My Little Pony parody cartoon show built in within Bob's Burgers, right? And one of the characters is a fan. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do I know the brony episode? We don't have time. We don't have time to unlock why John knows at least one episode about bronies.
Yeah. That was a great episode, actually.
Great episode. Yeah. Yeah. We have a parade here in Fort Collins every single year. It's a bike parade, and you like dress up in costume and you just like drink beer around town on your bike. And so I've been Bob's Burgers like, a couple of times, but yeah.
Can you imagine getting a DUI on a bicycle?
Well,
you can't technically, right?
You can. It's called a BUI, but like, this is like all licensed off area. By the city. So just don't be dumb is like the only rule. And yeah, it's pretty fun.
I actually just passed by real life Bob's Burgers. I mean, I'm sure it was there for a long time before the show, but I was somewhere in Southern California, and there was a place called Bob's Burgers.
Oh,
I was like, I don't know who has a lawsuit on their hands, but maybe there's a settlement.
Yeah, I don't know. Who knows?
You mean Bob's Big Boy?
No, I'm Southern California born and raised. I know what a Bob's Big Boy is. No, this was called Bob's Burgers.
And it wasn't a pop-up?
It was. I think it was just a privately owned place in Huntington Beach.
Oh. Maybe the guy's like, I'm Bob Littleton. I've had this business for 22 years. Like, I'm not changing the name now. Or maybe the Bob's Burgers creators, Jordan, you should know this trivia. They drove there, had a burger, and was like, let's make a burger cartoon.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure it takes place like in New Jersey, like not for sure stated, but it's like a wharf on the East Coast.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It feels very much California to me. Maybe it's because just the attitudes of like the actors or whatever. It seems like a very California show.
Yeah,
but they got the boardwalk, which is not in California. Maybe Santa Monica.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, much to Jordan's dismay, we're not here to talk about Bob's Burgers all night long. Talking about bursting fantasies or bubbles, a princess doesn't get saved. There's a new movie called The Princess on Hulu. It almost made the list, but didn't quite. It's an 80-minute. She's got to fight her way down the tower. It's kind of an interesting idea. Poor execution. And again, talking about martial arts in a fantasy movie, she also kicks her way down, and it's...
So wait.
Can't suspend my disbelief to go along with the ride. But anyway, it's getting mostly positive reviews, so people, if you like fantasy movies, a new one, since there aren't any made after 1987, then you can go watch The Princess on Hulu.
So wait, you kind of sell me on it. Is it like The Raid or Dread, where it's just like you got to keep going at each level to get to the next guy or something like that?
Yes, the whole movie. She wakes up in the tower. She's got to fight her way to the bottom of the tower.
I think you just sold a ticket, even though you don't have to pay the ticket. I might watch that later. I don't know. You might have sold me.
I'm pointing it out to fantasy fans if they're looking for another movie to watch and they've seen all the Conans and everything else that's out there. Speaking of a Conan-like movie, we're finally arrived, folks, at the feature presentation. Tonight's movie is Fire and Ice. It's from 1983. There's a cult filmmaker named Ralph Bakshi who's big in the animation world. And there's a fantasy artist that's considered like the godfather of fantasy artists, maybe the best that ever lived. I don't know. He's a legend, Frank Frazetta. His website is actually Frazetta Girls. He drew a lot of girls in his time, but he did album covers, book covers, comic books. He was a Conan the Barbarian artist at one point, and he did the character designs for this movie. Let me try to summarize the plot. Jared Leto is a wizard. He's trying to move his glaciers down this mountain to take over the rest of the kingdoms. He's not really Jared Leto, but the frozen wizard, whose name is Nekron, reminds me of Jared Leto playing a wizard in a movie about a frozen wizard. So I'm going with it. His mother is Queen Juliana, who conquered the north with her ice peak kingdom, whatever. They literally moved their whole fortress, which is made out of glaciers, further south to take over everything else. Then there's like a He-Man-like kid whose name is Larn. His village gets consumed by the ice, and then he wants to help the last kingdom left is Firekeep, which is so fire and ice. Literally one country is made of ice. The other country is made of fire. They're duking it out. The fire princess, whose name is Teegra, she gets kidnapped. Larn goes looking for her. They run into like a random Conan the Barbarian type whose name is Darkwolf, who wears like a mask. It looks more like a bear mask than a wolf mask, but he's going to help them along the way. And then that's basically it. They got to go save the princess. And if there's any relationships blossoming in the movie, it's not between the Larn and the princess. It's actually between Nekron and Larn. I don't know if you guys noticed how serious Nekron took that fight with Larn, as opposed to he just cast a princess immediately down into like a little crevice prison or whatever in his little ice keep there. But his mom's like really hardcore about like, I want little frozen wizard children. You got to marry somebody. And he's like, He can barely get off his throne. He can't be bothered with anything. But then meanwhile, like the other guy, the Darkwolf guy I mentioned, like really has some serious beef with Nekron, which isn't really fully explained. Yeah. Except he's like, yeah, I'm going to take out this wizard. Maybe they have some past drama. Who knows? We'll never know. Whatever happened between them was on the cutting room floor.
Yeah. Needed like a few more passes at the script to flesh it out.
Yeah. So maybe Dave will tell us about the techniques of making a movie like this. And we'll see what he has to say about Fire and Ice in his dangerous report.
Oh, man. Well,
are you not ready, Dave? Okay, let's go to Jordan for her favorite bits.
No, I'm ready. Since fantasy movies had become popular at the time, and director Ralph Bakshi had wanted to work with artist Frank Frazetta, like John mentioned, he was able to pull together financing and distribution easily for the movie at the time. The movie actually has several links to Conan the Barbarian. As mentioned, Frank Frazetta had painted many covers for the Conan books, and screenwriters Roy Thomas and Jerry Conway had written the Conan comics for Marvel in the 70s. So there's a real reason why this screams Conan. The animation for this movie was created using rotoscope. For people who don't know what that is, it's a method where the movie is mostly shot on film, usually in black and white, with the actors actually playing the roles, and then animation is painted over it. Many of the actors are credited, but many of their voices were replaced in post-production to fit the feel that Ralph Bakshi was going for. Aside from Frank Frazetta, a few other famous artists came out of this movie. Thomas Kincaid, who's known for these big landscape paintings, you can buy them in malls, worked on the backgrounds. James Gurney, who created the illustrated books Dinotopia, worked on backgrounds as well. And then another movie that's our TV show, actually, that turned into a movie that feels very much like this, except for sci-fi. Peter Chung, the creator of Aeon Flux, was a layout artist for this. So for people who remember that show, that got turned into a movie. And in 2001, it was announced Robert Rodriguez was going to make a live-action version of this. And in 2014, Sony Pictures bought the rights, but nothing has come of that yet.
So Rodriguez did press for this. I was looking this up after I saw your fact sheet. I was like, really? He was like toting around pieces from the Frazetta like artwork museum of like events around the country, and like he was interviewed and he was talking about making it, and then, as you said, nothing came of it. But go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, well, he's been trying to like make something like this for years, because this is the first I heard about him wanting to do this, but I know he's been trying to do Red Sonja forever, and I think it's actually gotten passed on to somebody else at this point.
Yeah, Red Sonja, the unofficial third Conan movie. It was set in the same world. It's by the same writer, Robert E. Howard, and she's like a female Conan. Exactly, that's basically it. And but I don't think that movie's ever going to happen. Anyway, these might be hard movies to get made. I don't know, but I saw some outtakes of like Bakshi's technique. Like it's literally like they're painting the animation cells over the live footage of the actors, and I'm like, that seems like an expensive process. Like you take the time to get the actors, they're acting in all the scenes, and then you're literally drawing over them on the film. But I was like, oh, it's kind of like old school motion capture, like how they do now with people in the suits. Except for that's all digital, but it seems like a very similar process, except for like rotoscoping is just drawing, colored cells on top of your film that you record or whatever. But I was like, it's almost like he made the movie already with the actors with cheesy props, and then drew over them with the better animation. But anyway, he basically, I don't know where exactly the history of rotoscoping. I mean, it was used as special effects in a lot of 80s movies.
It was back to Disney. I mean, I think something like this, Cinderella dancing around was rotoscoping.
The point I'm making is like, yeah. But where Bakshi took it is what makes Bakshi like unique. You know what I mean? Like he took it to like,
well, yeah,
a step further.
It's nuts. He's like the only animator I can think of that had like, we all know Walt Disney, but like all Disney movies, you just think Walt Disney. He's the only, maybe until Don Bluth came around, which we did another episode on, but he's like the only like director that you knew, or animated director you knew his work. I mean, because he pumped out like, because of that rotoscope style, he was able to make a movie or two like every year or every 2 years or so. Whereas like most animators, it takes like 5-7 years sometimes, depending on the type of animation you're doing. So, I mean, he's definitely got a distinctive style, and he was able to pump them out like really fast.
What's funny about his work, though, he definitely like has like a. You're talking about being a Southern California boy. Like he has like a certain like LA vibe or California style. He can incorporate it into his characters. Like, well, first of all,
which is funny because he's so opposite.
He's in this movie, he's running around in a bikini the whole time. Nobody ever explains where they got the idea to make a bikini, but
micro.
Yeah.
Micro bikini.
Well, that's Frank Frazetta. I mean, But that isn't so much Ralph Bakshi as it was Frank Frazetta, because I mean that was like what most of the women looked like on his cover.
No. Look at Bakshi's other movies.
Well, yeah, you're correct, but I mean this specifically was, I'd say, Frank Frazetta. I mean, yeah, Bakshi is known for like having cartoon nudity all over his movies, but they're also not the most racially proper these days either.
Oh yeah, I mean, again, from a time and place. He's from the 70s. Most of his stuff is from the 70s.
Well, it's funny you say you thought he was Southern California because he's actually like Brooklyn. Like he's like,
oh,
Brooklyn,
really?
Born and raised. He's like tough guy.
Well, inner city, urban anyway. But I like
definitely urban.
But I gotta give him props for Wizards. I don't know if anybody will scream like appropriation, but like there's a Latina hero in Wizards. The main girl in that is Latina, which is a Latina fairy, actually, which is kind of cool. I always thought it was cool and something different, but I don't know. Maybe it is appropriation. Who knows? I'm not going to weigh in on that one way or the other. I'll just let people know that I think that's a cool movie with a cool character. Where are we? Favorite bits, which Jordan runs now. So, Jordan, you can take over anytime.
All right. Favorite bits. My favorite bits, there's a lot in this movie, but I would say probably the first is when Teegra and Larn like actually come across each other, right? She's like trying to eat his food, and then they go, like, she has this like seductiveness where she like wants him to chase her, sort of. Runs off with these little berries. And then my favorite is when she's like, no funny business. I've definitely used that line a couple times before. Then what happens? They fall into the freaking pond. And then there's like a giant kimono dragon that just like comes out and bucks. Oh no, it was the Kraken, pretty much. The Kraken in there that gets Larn and tries to take him down. And yeah, so I'd say that's probably my favorite bit, but there's a lot that
You're right. She's like trying to escape kidnapping the whole time, and she runs from all kinds of monsters. There was a giant iguana that was eating the beastmen, who are called, like, I guess officially they're called subhumans, but yeah. Nekron's army is like a bunch of mutants that seem like not as genetically developed or as smart as the average human. So
the only part I have to pick is like, I'm like, Teegra, girl, like you are being a damsel. And she gets captured how many times? Like 5 times at least. She just like gets away and is running around, and then she gets captured again, and it happens like 5 or 6 times. I also liked her monologue in front of what's his name? The villain. What's his name?
Nekron.
Help me out. Thank you. Yeah, because then he just laughs in her face, and I was like, oh, that kind of made me sad. So, Dave, what's your favorite bit?
I have a couple. The animation in this is beautiful, but there's a scene where, speaking of the subhumans, I don't even know what the creature was, but there was a creature, I don't know, it was like a roly-poly or millipede or something that like latched onto their hand, and I don't know, that it had like teeth, that like stuck in my mind. It was kind of terrifying, just this big bug that could bite off your hand. And then later on, there's a scene with our hero, whose name I already forgot, was talking to like this skeleton that popped out of the ground.
Larn.
Yeah.
There you go. But there's a scene where he's having this conversation with the skeleton and saying how I want to say Teegra was screwing things up or something. I don't know. Maybe it's just because
the witch.
The witch,
the Mongoloid son who gets betrayed and burned alive. Her name is Roel.
Yeah. Well, the animation with the conversation with the skeleton just really kind of creeped me out, and it was one of the more interesting parts of the movie.
I liked that too.
Yeah.
That's also the trailer scene. That's the teaser scene that if you see that as a movie preview, that will make you want to watch the rest of it. Him talking to the dead witch.
Well, what about you, John?
You took mine. Literally the conversation with the dead witch. You can
say it more eloquently.
Well, yeah, I mean, the conversation with the dead witch brings you into the story. It's pretty interesting. And I'm super attracted to the character of Nekron. Like, I'm actually tired of like weak heroes. Like Jordan was like, I'm tired of the cliche of the princess who like is too afraid to do anything or take care of business. That's her dad's fault though. King Jurl or whatever his name is, Jarl or whatever from Firekeep. Like, didn't teach her anything useful.
Which
or the brother for that matter, because her brother gets taken out too.
Yeah.
So. Whatever. He's just gonna dump lava on everybody. And push come to shove. He had fire the whole time. Use that in the beginning, jerk. Like, waste time with glaciers. I I wish we knew more about Darkwolf, because they mention it's like a blink and you miss it moment in the beginning of the movie. They tell Larn to go when they think they're going to lose the battle to Nekron at his village. Somebody yells at him, "Go where your brother is," and then they show us Darkwolf. So in my mind, I'm putting the 2 and 2 together, thinking that they're suggesting that's the older brother. But then when they interact with each other, they don't know each other. So I'm like, wait a minute. So are we going to find out that there was an older brother who ran the village and then disappeared, and like that was the beef with Nekron? Is like he almost lost and then like went through like his own tribulations and then came back as this Darkwolf character, like wearing like a different identity, or what's the deal? But they never describe that or explore that. And then no, he's supposed to be a stranger, and I'm like, well, they just want to both kill Nekron? I don't get it. But what's interesting is like Nekron is the most developed character in the whole movie. Like he's the most interesting. So I'm like, dang it, like they should do this now. This is gonna get stolen from me, but it's just like make a story like this, a fantasy story, or a science fiction or something like. But it's villain and villain. There are no heroes, just a villain and villain, because they're always more compelling. They have better backstories. They're more highly motivated. Like there's a reason why they're broken people, so you have good drama. You know what I mean? Like why they're so tragic. They would be heroes except for et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. These fine points. So that's it. Characterization of Nekron and the conversation with the dead witch. 2 reasons that those are my favorite bits. Yep. So now we can rate it, even though I'm excited. Yeah, I don't think you guys are going to guess my rating, but
What?
I'll wait. I'll take my turn in time. Yeah.
Okay, it was a binge now for me. I almost watched it a second time. Yeah.
I technically did watch it a second time, but that's just because I was fading when I was watching it the first time. It's a binge later. There's a lot to like about it. It's very beautiful. I love the animation, but it also has a lot of the elements of why I don't like a lot of anime. Like, just it's just jerk off material for 12-year-olds in a lot of ways. Like, hey, I'm a princess I'm wearing a bikini in ice, even though I should be cold as hell. I don't know. It just there's like no reason, and nobody wears shoes. I don't know, or any kind of feet covering. But there's enough to like about it. Like, I'm not totally crapping on it. So binge later. What about you, John?
You could have said the same thing about Legend last week with the little tiny children running around in the snow. Is all I'm saying, Dave.
I would have to watch it again for a reminder. I just remember like the princess in like the flowy dress or like the long train dress. Or
now I have so many things that I have to address before I even get to my rating. First of all, David, aren't you a 12-year-old in your heart?
For things like Dumb and Dumber,
if you've lost your childlike sense of wonder, you need to watch like 25 more fantasy movies or fairy tales. To address Jordan's point about children, fantasy like children running around, not wearing shirts or whatever. They're elves, Jordan. They don't get cold. Okay? They're magic. Whatever. When you can't have an answer, you just go, "It's magic. It's magic. It's magic." Okay.
The wizard did it.
Yeah, the wizard did it. It's a binge never. You know why?
Wow.
I had a lot of anticipation for this movie. I waited like 20 years or so. 20 years because I'm 29. Okay. So I waited 20 years or so. Yeah, wink, wink. I waited 20 years or so to watch this movie, and it let me down. So it's a binge never for me, which is usually not where I'm at on the rating scale. So
I am surprised.
Historically.
I thought this was at the very least a binge later for you.
But then Dave's argument about anime has to also be addressed. I'm going to shove so much anime down your throat, you're going to love it or die. That's what's going to happen. Next year, all anime, David. Every single episode, anime. We're going to change the name of the show to Anime Watch or Die. No,
that'll be like an interesting experiment to see like how long I last without snapping on the show.
Wow.
Oh, man. Just as long as it's not the stuff like La Blue Girl or any tentacle stuff. No, thank you.
How many weeks do you think you could last?
He can last 3 because usually if we do 4 weeks, by the 3rd week he's like snapping at everybody. Yeah.
Well, you usually like say the classic for the 4th one, like Princess Mononoke or something, where it's like, okay, even though I'm not a big fan, like I can at least appreciate this.
Wow. And they're the Disney movies of the East, and you love Disney movies. It all lines up in a certain way. That as long as it follows the Disney method, that's why you love Legend so much, because the studio is like, yeah, we're blowing through a lot of money. You guys just use the Disney method, have a happy ending, and get over yourselves. That's that was part of the trivia, David, that they were enforced to use the Disney method during the production. Okay. We've talked more about last week's movie than we did about this week's movie. Oh no.
Well, you did rate it a binge never, so I mean, maybe that tells you why.
Yeah. So if my co-host watched anything else this week, we're gonna move on to staff picks. Can they recommend a movie for you or show? Even because I guess people watch shows. Jordan, did you watch anything else you want to tell the audience about?
Not really. I've been trying to get back into the Stranger Things, but haven't had enough time because those episodes take for freaking ever. But
oh, here, let me spoil the ending of the season for you. Here we
don't even.
I literally just finished it today, and no.
I had to like put my fingers in my ears at work today. So
I hate when people do that. Like, in fact, I had to fast forward on the show last week because you guys were talking about Spiderhead. I'm like, I haven't even had a chance to watch that. I'm like, forward.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I told them before we started, Jordan, that we didn't tease him that bad for missing last week's show, but I didn't realize we were going to potentially spoil something he wanted to watch. That's hilarious.
Okay.
Appropriate torture for you, Dave.
Let's see. I was on vacation last week, and I actually saw 3 movies in the theater, but one of them is not even worth talking about, even though it's got 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't care. Don't go see Marcel the Snail or Shell, whatever the fudge it's called. It is just boring and not worth it. I don't know how that movie got 100%. But I did, however, see The Black Phone. Everybody's talking about it. If you want to see a new horror suspense movie, it's really worth it. It's definitely the product of Stephen King's son. Let's put it that way. But that's not a bad thing. And I actually got to see, in their pretentious side of me, I got to see David Lynch's Lost Highway on the big screen. First and only time I've gotten to see a David Lynch movie. I don't know.
You mean in a theater setting? You watched it?
Okay. Yeah. No, this is the first time I got to see one on the big screen, which I realized you kind of have to see David Lynch movies on the big screen because you're kind of trapped. You don't have barking dogs, wives asking you for stuff. His movies kind of demand your attention, and it was kind of fun. It was kind of fun to see it in a theater where people actually got it, or at least pretended to get it, laughed along with it. So I don't know if people are into David Lynch movies, go check that out. It's got like 9 Inch Nails soundtrack and Rammstein, if anybody remembers them. I don't know. What did you do?
Watch anything, John?
John, have you seen anything? God, I can't think today.
Got your back.
Yeah, she's saved your ass so many times on this episode, David.
Liar. Okay.
At least twice. I did watch something. I've kind of been raving about this show called The Bear on Hulu, which is like,
oh, get into it.
Apparently, it's an effects drama, but so I think, okay. I mean, I think I've talked about on the show, or maybe with you guys in messages, that like I paid my way through college by working in different kitchens, and after college, when like you run out of money, need another job, a day gig or whatever, while you're working on, well, I'm an actor. Okay, yeah, I'm working as a cook in a pizza place or whatever. You know what I mean? Like I worked in a lot of kitchens, so I watched this thing and I was like, that's what it feels like to work in a kitchen. I recognize what's happening, but every single character is like the best written character on television. Like what is happening in an 8-episode show with the middle child from the American version of, dang it. What is the show? His name is Jeremy Allen White, and he's on Shameless. He's on the American version of the show Shameless. He's older now, obviously, but he was like the 3rd oldest child in Shameless or whatever. And so he basically plays one of 2 brothers. He's the younger one. The older brother has tragically died, unfortunately, and left him a mess of a kitchen to clean up and run in this restaurant called like the original beef of Chicago, or Beef Land of Chicago or something. And it's completely dysfunctional, but a lot of kitchens are dysfunctional, composed of dysfunctional people that like their sanctuary is the kitchen, and they get it together long enough to cook good food for other people that can afford to buy it while their lives are kind of falling apart. But I've watched the entire show twice now, and that's a lot because I'm a very hard critic. Like I wanted to make movies, and now I spend my time mostly criticizing the movies of filmmakers that I like, and I don't want to be a critic. But we make jokes that like I'm like a John Lovitz character from The Simpsons who's called The Critic, and they did like a spinoff of this guy, and he like that's his job. But I don't have anything bad to say about this show. And also I see other people that have cooking experience like responding to my little reels about it. What's a reel? Well, folks, in social media, you can make a short video and post it to your friends and anybody who has the internet. And sometimes people will comment on it. And so I saw the comments were like, yeah, that's not an insider's look at a kitchen. Yeah, right. And I'm like, what I didn't say in my video was I worked in several kitchens, and this feels like I'm going to work as a line cook, dishwasher, prep cook, sous chef. The abuse, fraternity style that rolls down, plus everybody's wacky personalities as you're trying to make like 25 sandwiches for your customers, but you have to listen to the story of like what's going on in the other cook's life. Like that's exactly what it that's exactly what it freaking feels like. You know what I mean? So, and yeah, I mean, I can't push it hard enough. I don't want to push it so much like, hey, you got to read this like a book report or something. You're assigned to this, but
I'd say because I just finished it last night. You suggested it to me, and I saw a preview of it at one of the movies I saw, and I was sold. I rushed through it. Yeah, no, check. I'd say at least watch the first episode. Like, yeah, it's not a homework assignment, but if you watch that first episode and you're not itching to watch the second, then it's not.
Well, see, I would be surprised if you turned it on and didn't watch at least 2 or 3 of them and then stopped. If you got
that's kind of what happened to me. I think I told you I finished watching the first episode, and that's literally all the time I had that day to watch it. But the next opportunity I got, I like binged 3 in a row. Like it's just that good. I mean, yeah, you're right. Every character is well written because they're like full 3-dimensional characters, and like people. I mean, I don't know, man. I was sold on it from the first episode. I mean.
It is a quick binge though.
They're only 20... to see people like inspire each other. That in the show.
But they're only 25-minute episodes, so it's a quick binge. You can get through it quickly.
Yeah. Excellent. I'm so excited to hear that because I feel like with Stranger Things it being like an hour and 20 minutes and stuff. Like I can't imagine like adding another episode, like another series on my plate right now, but knowing it's only like 20 minutes per episode, like I will probably crank it out before next week.
No, it's a quick binge.
I don't want to hog all the time on the mic, but I'll tell you 2 more things about it. Like, so the showrunner's wife is a real chef, and so she advised on it. So it's being produced by somebody that knows kitchens. And then the second thing is, it's a list jumper. Like if you have a queue and you're like, oh, I'm eventually going to get to these 10 movies and these 3 shows that you said were like the seasons are 45-minute, like episodes are 50 minutes plus, and there's 9 episodes. This moved immediately to the front of my line, and like I was more intrigued. I'll just tell you, I was watching more of The Bear than I was watching Legend or freaking Fire and Ice. Let me tell you something. Like,
I'm stoked.
No, it's
pretty good.
It's a fast binge.
I will be surprised if either came back and said, like, John, this is horse shit. Like,
you got no concern for me. I've already watched it.
Well, and like I have all of my like restaurant industry friends because I was in the industry for like 15 years. Like I've seen them posting it on their Instagram and in their Facebook. So, I just need to watch it.
I feel like there was no press. I feel like they just dropped it on Hulu, and I'm like, I hope they just like one and done and just burn it out. Like,
it's advertised like everywhere in LA, though. Like, I don't think
first. I think at first it wasn't. I think like it got traction, and then people are like, "You got to see this."
Yeah, it's getting some word of mouth now.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you live in a smaller area like I do, I didn't hear about it. Then you go to LA and it's like, hey, posters everywhere. Watch this show.
Isn't it funny that sometimes the staff pick becomes the best part of the episode? So, folks, you got to listen to the whole damn 45 minutes because you'll never get here. Yeah. The gems are here. The gold is here. It's dripping.
Because unfortunately, it's a TV show. We're never going to do an episode on The Bear unless it's the.
I don't know. I don't know. This might be the one that breaks all the rules.
I mean, it is kind of a movie. Like where it ends, it does lead to a second season. However, if it doesn't get picked up for some reason, like it came full circle. You're not going to be disappointed if there's no season 2.
I almost broke our rules to cover Chernobyl, the Chernobyl miniseries.
Good.
That is so good, but so depressing. Like it is. Like, but it's worth it. You just got to be in the right mindset.
Yeah.
Speaking of mindsets, we're about to wrap it up, but come back next week. We'll have another movie about fantastic stuff. I'm going to tell them what we're watching, but audience, I'm not going to actually give you guys an opportunity to know what we're watching. Just come back next week. If you like the binging that we've done, come back, bingers. We'll see you next week.